On October 13, 1972, the cockpit of an F-4 Phantom buzzed with tension. Flying high above North Vietnam's Kep Airfield, pilot Lieutenant Colonel Curtis Westphal gripped the joystick tightly. Next to him, his weapons system officer, Captain Jeffrey S. Feinstein, focused intently on the radar. The tranquil flight shattered as a voice crackled over the radio, announcing enemy MiGs were airborne and closing fast. Within moments, Westphal and Feinstein sprang into action, heading toward the impending confrontation. Feinstein's heart pounded. These weren't just any opponents. This engagement could cement his status as an ace, a title given to those who downed 5 enemy aircraft. With the stakes high and the enemy closing in, the chase began. A daring duel in the skies, missiles ready for launch. Feinstein soon spotted the MiG-21s and launched 3 AIM-7 missiles, praying at least one would hit its mark. During the Korean War, the newly formed United States Air Force saw nearly 900 enemy aircraft shot down, with 39 pilots earning the title of ace. This era marked the world's first jet-to-jet victories. In the Vietnam War, becoming an ace proved far more challenging. From 1965 to 1968, Operation Rolling Thunder marked the first major U.S. bombing campaign in Vietnam. Despite intense aerial bombardment, air-to-air combat was rare. For years, large-scale air campaigns against North Vietnam were absent. In 1972, Operation Linebacker changed the landscape. Recognizing the urgent need to support South Vietnamese forces and counter the North's military push, the Nixon administration, advised by Kissinger, opted for decisive air power. This involved deploying additional combat aircraft and authorizing extensive bombing campaigns targeting North Vietnam's logistics and air defenses. These efforts aimed to disrupt supplies and weaken their military capabilities. Direct air-to-air combat returned, marking the first full-scale dogfights between North Vietnamese MiGs and U.S. aircraft since the war began. Aircraft operations had evolved. The Air Force's use of 2-man fighter air crews introduced a new category of ace. Whenever a fighter crew shot down an enemy aircraft, both the pilot and the backseat weapons system officer received full victory credit. Because pilots often changed aircrew members, an observer or gunner might be an ace even if their pilot was not. From April to October 1972, Linebacker called upon additional USAF fighting squadrons based in Japan and Thailand, bringing aces back, possibly for the last time in American history. Jeffrey Feinstein, born in Chicago in 1945, enlisted in the United States Air Force in 1963, hoping to become a pilot. Rejected due to myopia, he trained as a navigator and earned his wings in 1969. After combat crew training aboard the F-4 Phantom II, Feinstein served as a WSO with several tactical fighter squadrons, finally landing with the 13th FS stationed in Thailand. Soon after joining, Feinstein became one of the 13th's best WSOs. In the fall of 1971, while leading 4 fighters to cover chaff bombers, hostile aircraft attempted a high-altitude supersonic attack. Feinstein forced them to break off their intercept, nearly downing both in a dangerous dogfight. But his best battles were yet to come. As America intensified its efforts in Vietnam, with Linebacker about to launch in April 1972, strike forces targeted fuel depots, warehouses, and truck parks in Haiphong and on the outskirts of Hanoi. These were the first such operations in the area since 1968. North Vietnam retaliated heavily, firing thousands of rounds of anti-aircraft artillery and surface-to-air missiles. Armed with Soviet MiGs, the enemy repeatedly engaged American strike aircraft. On April 16th, Navigator Feinstein and his pilot, Major Edward D. Cherry, flew over hostile territory as part of a flight of 4 Phantoms providing air defense support near Hanoi. Cherry spotted 2 MiGs via radar. As the enemy aircraft attempted to attack, a chase through the clouds began. Feinstein, operating the radar with precision, finally secured a lock after initial missile failures. This allowed Cherry to launch an AIM-7 missile that struck the MiG, causing its immediate destruction. Feinstein, Cherry, and their teammates saw the enemy pilot eject from his aircraft, now a black cloud, as they flew back to safety. This victory was Cherry's only one, but for Feinstein, it was just the beginning. Feinstein's quick thinking and cool actions under pressure paid off again. He and his pilot launched an AIM-9 Sidewinder missile at the enemy. Although they had to break away and didn't see the missile hit, it was recorded as a successful strike. With this second kill, Feinstein's reputation in the Air Force grew rapidly. But he wasn't the only one making a name for himself. During this intense period, 2 other Air Force men were also approaching ace status. Pilot Richard Stephen Ritchie and WSO Charles B. de Bellevue, often working together, were achieving significant victories. The three men shared the highs and lows of aerial combat aboard their Phantoms. As summer approached and Operation Linebacker intensified, all three were close to the coveted ace status. Their experiences fostered a sense of competitive camaraderie. On June 13th, Ritchie and de Bellevue claimed to have downed a MiG-21. However, the 7th Air Force's Enemy Aircraft Claims Evaluation Board rejected their claim due to insufficient evidence. This decision mirrored Feinstein's own frustration just days earlier. On June 9th, while leading a combat air patrol to support a strike force, Feinstein engaged two enemy aircraft. He most likely downed one, but the board denied his claim. These shared experiences of denied claims only fueled their determination to achieve air superiority. By July 1972, with Operation Linebacker in full swing, the Air Force's bombing campaign intensified. On July 18th, Feinstein and pilot Lieutenant Colonel Carl Bailey supported a strike force over North Vietnam. When enemy fighters attacked during their escape, Feinstein responded. He initiated a high-speed, low-altitude chase, shooting down one of the enemy aircraft and securing his third victory. Thanks to his actions, the strike force completed its mission without losing any aircraft. Feinstein and Bailey teamed up again on July 29th. Leading four Phantoms on a combat air patrol to protect strike aircraft near Hanoi, they encountered heavy anti-aircraft fire. Despite the risk to his life, Feinstein decided to protect the strike force. As MiGs approached at high speed, Feinstein and Bailey found themselves face-to-face with an enemy aircraft. They turned hard, Feinstein locked onto the MiG, and Bailey fired two missiles, taking it down. Pilot Bailey later told newsmen the credit all goes to Jeff. When you get them head-on, the guy with the radar does all the work. I just sat up front and squeezed the trigger. Feinstein's precise radar work was critical to their success. On August 28th, after 7 years of air-to-air combat in Southeast Asia, the U.S. Air Force produced its first ace of the war. Steve Ritchie had his fifth MiG victory confirmed. Just days later, on September 9th, Charles B. de Bellevue reached ace status with his fifth and sixth victories on the same day. Now it was only a matter of time before Feinstein joined them. On October 13th, 1972, Feinstein was flying as the backseater for his squadron commander, Lieutenant Colonel Curtis Westphal. They were alerted that two MiG-21s had taken off from Hanoi and were heading north. Within minutes, Feinstein's flight turned to engage. He obtained radar contact with the bandits at 17 nautical miles. Despite friendly forces in the area, they managed to get within a mile of one of the enemy aircraft. Deciding to engage, they launched 3 AIM-7 missiles. The second missile struck the MiG-21 in the aft section, causing it to burst into flames. The pilot ejected about 5 seconds after the missile impact. As Feinstein, his pilot, and their flight members watched the MiG-21 descend in flames until it vanished through the clouds, they realized Feinstein had just become the Air Force's newest ace. But Feinstein wasn't done. Realizing his wingman was under fire, he continued attacking the second MiG. Through aggressive maneuvers, he forced the enemy to flee. For his feats, Feinstein shared the 1972 Mackey Trophy with Captains Ritchie and de Bellevue and won the Air Force Cross. His citation read, through his extraordinary heroism, superb airmanship, and aggressiveness in the face of hostile forces, Captain Feinstein reflected the highest credit upon himself and the United States Air Force. Operation Linebacker ended that October, significantly impacting North Vietnam's military logistics and forcing them back to the negotiating table. This ultimately led to the Paris Peace Accords. While both sides claimed victory, the US believed it had achieved its strategic objectives, while North Vietnam saw the cessation of bombing and the eventual US withdrawal as a triumph. Feinstein continued to serve with distinction, flying in Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm. By the time he retired as a lieutenant colonel, he had earned 5 Distinguished Flying Crosses, 4 Silver Stars, 4 Air Medals, and an Air Force Cross. Since October 13, 1972, when Feinstein downed his 5th MiG-21, no new aces have emerged in the Air Force. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and turn on notifications to catch the next video.